Welcome to the MMA Renegade prediction show for UFC 267. My name is Tyriece Simon. We're here doing a prediction show for a prediction. Sorry, prediction for uh, Glover Teixeira versus John Blachowicz, Corey Sandhagen versus Peter Yan, the co-main event and the main event. I'm going to be covering that. Thank you guys for watching. Of course. Um, let's not waste any time. Get right into it. Let's cover Corey Sandhagen versus PDN first, right? Let's go. Let's cover what the most interesting fight on this card for me is Corey Sandhagen versus Peter Yan. Now, this fight is interesting because we were supposed to get Aljamain Sterling versus Peter Yan, the rematch, right? After Peter Yan did the, I would say, dumb thing of kneeing a ground opponent. When when the referee's telling you don't do it, he still does it, and now it cost him his title. Aljamain won fair and square. Yeah, I think this one is the most interesting fight on the card just because of so many questions that I feel will not be answered until we actually watch this fight, right? So we're seeing Peter Yan, who lost his title because of illegally kneeing Aljamain Sterling, right? And then we're seeing Corey Sandhagen, who was coming off a loss to TJ Dillashaw, in which it was a split decision. I've had it for TJ Dillashaw winning. But how he rebound after that and coming off of that fight to now fighting for an interim title is very interesting. Very interesting situation for him. Uh, and I think one of the interesting dynamics of this fight is I feel like there are both questions on how good the other really is, right? As being the elite being a champion level competitor. I feel like we've seen it for both guys, but I feel like we still haven't seen enough yet as well, right? That makes sense, right? For Peter Yan has had fought guys like Uriah Faber. He's fought guys like Jimmy Rivera. He's fought guys like Jose Aldo, right? And uh, guys are good. Uriah Faber, a little older, probably shouldn't be fighting at all. Even though he beats, I think it was Ricky Simone in impressive fashion, and then we fought against Peter Yan, and we see what happened. Jimmy Rivera has been somebody that has kind of been trying to find his way in the bantamweight division. And Jose Aldo is one where Jose Aldo, as good as he ended, he looked good in his last fight. Um, how does he stand up against the best of the best in the bantamweight division at his age, right? Uh, and that's the question. I thought Jose Aldo did good actually early on in the beginning of the fight, but then as the fights weighed on, we've seen the gas tank of Jose Aldo go down. The punishment he accrued over that round, which I thought part of that was Peter Yan and Peter Yan, terrific defense, which we're gonna talk about in a second. Uh, Played a big factor, and I think that resulted in Jose Aldo losing. But there's still questions of how Peter Yan really stacks up against the guys that are around the same age as him, around have are maybe more athletic in their time of their career, um, definitely in their prime. How does he stack up against them? And Corey Sandhagen is that. And Corey Sandhagen is a guy that even though he still is there's cool questions about him. He lost to Aljamain Sterling by rear naked choke and it was under a minute. His loss to TJ Dillashaw. I feel like we've seen enough brilliance of him to say, okay, he is somebody that right opponent, right time on a given day can beat anybody in the world, and has championship level capabilities. Just can he achieve that, right? Um, and I think that's where this fight is at, right? This fight is at who's really going to shine, who's really going to stand out and stake their claim as being one of the best bantamweights in the UFC, and definitely to lead the charge. And I think when you look at this fight, there's a couple of things for me with this fight that I wonder going into it, and I look at number one, going towards Corey Sandhagen's side. Corey Sandhagen, especially in his last fight, has a thing where he is so dynamic, and he uses his length, he uses his size, he uses his legs, and he's able to, land spinning attacks. He's able to hit a flying knee out of nowhere. He's able to do these unique things. Oh, and also he can wrestle too, so that also makes it a problem. Um, but the thing for me is, especially in that last fight with Dillashaw, I feel like there's times where he goes to the well with it too much because he can, right? Because he has that length, he can do spinning attacks, spinning body kicks, spinning uh, you know, head heel kicks and stuff like that. Uh, and I feel like he goes to the well with it too much. And especially in the Tia Dillashaw fight, I hope he learned from it. I felt like a large part of his energy just not having the same output that he had maybe in the previous rounds was because of the spinning attacks and not one A not setting it up, and then B just keep doing it over and over again to where Tia Dillashaw was hip to it and understand when it was coming, how to evade it, and how to counter his own shots. And I think that was a big problem for Corey Sandhagen in his last fight. Um, and I wonder how will he approach this fight. One of the things with Peter Yan is his defense. Peter Yan has great defense. He'll shut up like this. And if you watch the Aljamain Sterling fight, and you watch a little bit of the Jose Aldo fight, I felt what he did well was being able to shell up, and even though Aljamain Sterling or Jose Aldo are headhunting, and it looks like on the surface, like they're landing big shots, and but he's able to roll with it, or it just he's able to move with it or roll with it, or just graze it off the hands to where it's not as much impact as it looks. Or and you're seeing Aljamain Sterling, you're seeing Jose Aldo just relying on going to the head and not focusing on the body or the legs, to where Peter Yan just comes back and is able to counter with a shot that either hurts them or makes them rethink of coming at him. Um, and I think that is something where if you're Corey Sanderhagen, I'm looking at this and saying, okay, I'm not going to focus solely on body kicks. I mean, on spinning attacks. Let's set these things up, and let's try to figure out how we can get his guard down, right? So maybe it is, hey, I'm gonna throw more leg kicks in this fight because Peter Yan, while he does have a good guard, he rolls with his punches. He's able to slip punches as well. Uh, the leg kicks are there. The leg kicks are there. For Corey Sandhagen, you're not gonna have to worry about him taking you down because you. I think Corey Sandhagen has the advantage on the ground as well. Um, and I think Peter Young will try to make this a stand-up fight. I think for Corey Sandhagen though, Corey Sandhagen has to focus on not just going not headhunting, not headhunting. Peter Young will leave it there. He'll just stand in front of you, and he'll allow you to try to headhunt. And I think what Corey Sandhagen needs to do is go to the body, go spinning attacks to the body. Um, and maybe the more you go down to the body, to the legs, then other parts of Peter Young will open up as well, and now will lead to maybe a spinning heel kick to the head, or maybe a flying knee. But you have to set those things up to be able to put them out. Um, but I do think Corey Sandhagen is capable of making adjustments from, especially for his last fight, and I think he can make those adjustments. And I think if there's somebody I think that will have the IQ to not headhunt on a Peter Yan, which Peter Yan has fought against like to do. I think Corey Sandhagen is one of those guys that may have that will have the IQ to say, okay, we're not headhunting this guy. We're not going to just rush in on this guy. We're going to take our time. We're going to use our length, pick him apart, and set these things up to where his hands will drop, and then I will be able to land a shot that may be able to rock him or hurt him. Um, so that's my one thing with Corey Sandhagen is just the spinning attacks that it can't come into play. And if it is going to come into play, he has to be able to set those things up and work towards them to really be impactful. For Peter Yan, I think one of the things with Corey Sandhagen is, how does he deal with pressure? And I know Peter Yan is capable of it, but he hasn't really done it. I would love to, and he did a little bit with. We've seen a little bit of it on display with the Aljamain Sterling fight, but he really didn't do much with it. I would love to see Peter Yan uh try to get in close and try to close that gap between Corey Sandhagen to where he can't use that length. And I would love to even see him try to maybe go for throws, go for sweeps, go for takedowns on a Corey Sandhagen. Um and try to sap the energy and try to use his will against Peter Yan. I mean Corey Sandhagen. Um I'd also love to see Peter Yan go to the body on Corey Sandhagen. Going and definitely go on the inside and dirty box, get in the clinch. For me, with Peter Yan is how's he going to deal with the length and the height advantage? I think for Corey Sandhagen and what Corey Sandhagen could do. Corey Sandhagen is someone that has difficult footwork to mimic and to that work against in training. Um, he can throw a flying knee out of nowhere. He can throw a spinning attack out of nowhere. He does hit you with things in weird angles, and he also can set things up. We've seen him set things up with Frankie Edgar. He set up that flying knee. So he also has the IQ and thinks about these fights methodically. Again, it's just can he rein it in on just the spinning attacks and all that. And I think he can. I think he can make those judgments. So for Peter Yan, he's gonna have to get it inside and have to pressure Corey Sandhagen and make him work. And I think with that, I think you will eliminate the spinning attacks. You will eliminate the element of surprise from Corey Sandhagen, and I think it becomes more of a better game plan for Peter Yan. If this fight is going to be won, I think this fight is going to be uh, Peter Yan getting on the inside and making Corey Sandhagen work. He's not going to win on the outside. If it stays on the outside, Peter Yan is going to lose this fight. If Peter Yan can get in close and bully Corey Sandhagen, I think he has a chance to win in this fight. Um, I would say for me, if I had to make a prediction on who wins this fight, I would have to lean towards Corey Sandhagen. I would have to lean towards Corey Sandhagen, and the reason why is me personally, I still don't know just how good Peter Yan is. Again, he has wins over Jimmy Rivera. He has wins over Uriah Faber. He has wins over Jose Aldo. Right? I know those are good wins. I feel like Corey Sandhagen in the UFC at least has fought better um, talent at his level and in his age bracket to then or has been more consistent to say, okay, I've seen enough from him to know how he can do against 135ers. And I think Corey Sandhagen, uh, it could be one of the best bantamweights in the UFC. And it's just, can he take that extra step and become a champion in the UFC in the bantamweight division? And I think against Peter Yan, if you're trying to make your bet, you're trying to guess who wins this fight and how. I think Corey Sandhagen has more ways to win than Peter Yan. I think he has uh, the striking. I think to match Peter Yan's. I think he has the IQ that can give Peter Yan problems. I think the IQ part is the big factor, just because of just how Peter Yan opponents has approached Peter Yan, and to where they'll feel like they're getting the advantage of Peter Yan on the feet with going to the head and trying to headhunt. Whereas I think Corey Sandhagen will go for leg kicks. I think he will go to the body, and hopefully he sets those things up going with spin attacks. But I think he has a more element of surprise than his past opponents has had. Jose Aldo, we know he's going to go with leg kicks and he's going to use his boxing, right? Uriah Faber is somebody that I would say was maybe I want to say past his prime to be disrespectful, but he definitely shouldn't have been there with Peter Yan. And I feel like with Uriah Faber, we knew it was going to be grappling. Um, and I feel like with Corey Sandhagen, there are so many questions that Peter Yan has to answer in terms of how he deal with somebody of this caliber that can do all of this, and also has the reach advantage, I believe. And also can wrestle, can mix in this wrestling, can also surprise you with a lot of different tricks, and has that IQ mindset. I think that is a problem that Peter Yan has not faced yet. And for that reason alone, I'm going to go with Corey Sandhagen, 'cause I believe Corey Sandhagen has fought more established names in the UFC than Peter Yan has so far. So I'm going to go with Corey Sandhagen to beat Peter Yan. If I had it my way, I think it's going to be a decision. I think Corey Sandhagen beats Peter Yan by decision, by unanimous decision. So that's my pick for Peter Yan versus Corey Sandhagen. I got Corey Sandhagen beating Peter Yan by unanimous decision. And if Corey Sandhagen beats Peter Yan, you would have to think Corey Sandhagen versus T. Dillashaw 2 is more likely than happening. Um, because we don't know what Aljamain Sterling issue is. Well, not his issue is what his situation stands with his neck problem. Will they clear him to compete? Um, and I mean, you can also do Corey Sandhagen versus Aljamain Sterling, but again, that question of is he able going to be able to compete is a big question with his neck. So right now, I'm ruling Aljamain Sterling out until we get confirmation that he is okay to compete in the UFC. And I say if Aljamain Sterling's not ready, I think you get a unification fight with I think a vacant unification fight with Corey Sandhagen versus uh, Tid Dillashaw next. If Corey Sandhagen was to win, and also again you can also have Aljamain Sterling, but I don't know what Aljamain Sterling is, so I think Tid Dillashaw will be the next person to step up. Um, and yeah, I'll be interested to see how this fight plays out. Again, I have Corey Sandhagen beating Peter Yan. All right, so I think the co-main event is probably the most interesting fight on this card, just because of so many questions I have for both men and whether they can achieve what I think they're capable of being. All right, in the main event, right? The main event we see Glover Teixeira trying to get that UFC title that has eluded him this whole entire time. But he has to go up against John Blachowicz, who right now is on a tear and right now is as better as he's ever been. And to paint the story, you have to go back and look at Glover Teixeira's career, right? We look at Glover Teixeira and how he seemed like he was in the middle of the pack about 2 years ago, right? We took look at his last win. I mean, his last loss was against Corey Anderson in July 22nd, 2018, uh, to Corey Anderson by unanimous decision, right? So at that point, we're thinking Glover Teixeira is maybe getting old. Maybe it's time for him to hang it up. Maybe he's going to be out the UFC. Like, what else can Glover Teixeira do? And when can he still be that guy? And Glover Teixeira goes in there and fights. I wouldn't say young guys, but I would definitely say um, up and comers to the light heavyweight division. And he goes in there. He beats Carl Roberson by arm triangle in January 19th, 2019. Right? He goes in there, beats Ian Kutalaba the Hulk. He beats him by rear naked choke. Goes in, fights Nikita Krylov, beats him, split decision. Recently fights Anthony Smith and beats him by TKO. Then he follows that up with beating Thiago Santos by rear naked choke. So his last wins are over Carl Robinson. I would say a younger talent, at least in the light heavyweight division, in Kutalabra, Nikolai Krylov, Anthony Smith, and then Thiago Santos. Two of those last two guys were people that fought against John Jones and were thought of being title contenders, or when John Jones was to leave the division, that they will be the front runners to fight for a title, right? And he dispatched both of the guys, finishing both guys, right? At his age, that is something that should be appreciated, and I think Glover Teixeira deserves an applause from 2 years ago having doubts of whether he can still compete at the level at the UFC and make a run for a title. To now we're talking about Glover Teixeira. Can he beat John Blachowicz to win the title this Saturday? I think it's a great thing to see. And it deserved praise. But John Blachowicz also deserved praise for how he's turned his career around, and you know he goes in there, he beats Luke Rockhold, and he goes in there. Who else did he beat? He goes in there, he beats Luke Rockhold. He goes in there, he beats Corey Anderson. He goes in there, he beats Jacare Souza, guys that he was not expected to beat, or people didn't really take him seriously, and he goes in there and beats all of them, and then beats Dominic Reyes, who again people thought, oh, when John Jones is gone, Dominic Reyes is going to be the guy, and John Blachowicz shut that down quick, and then he goes in there and shuts people down again with Israel Adesanya, right? So he's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fight win streak, just like Glover Teixeira. So that both of these guys deserve praise, especially for John Blachowicz for what he did to Israel Adesanya, right? Um, and I say this all to say I praise both these guys and I appreciate both of these guys. But I think if you're looking at this fight, I think John Blachowicz should win this fight. I think John Blachowicz should win this fight. And I think part of the reason why I'm picking John Blachowicz to win this fight, I'm giving my early prediction right now. I think John Blachowicz wins this fight. I don't know if it's gonna be by TKO. Um, I'm gonna go on the safe side and say it's a decision, but I can see him also stopping him as well. John Blachowicz is somebody that I think right now is just better, and maybe a couple of years ago we could have had a difference. Um, but I think one of the things that alarmed me a little bit when going back and watching Glover Teixeira's last fight is the speed, and I think Glover Teixeira's speed, especially older now, he hasn't fought in over a year, um, or going to be over a year. I think that may be a big problem for Glover Teixeira. The way he looked against out Anthony Smith, even though he hurt Anthony Smith and beat him, and I think he dropped him Anthony Smith as well, before battering him on the ground. I think is I think is alarming, right? Because I've seen Glover Teixeira trying to strike and trying and leave himself open and reaching in for shots. And I also look at the Anthony Smith loss and win, and because Anthony when did he fight? He fought Anthony Smith. I kind of forget that he fights Thiago Santos. I know he did, but I kind of forget that fight even happened. Um, isn't the same year, but I thought the Anthony Smith one was a lot more impressive. Um, I thought Thiago Santos, I feel like that Thiago Santos is not the guy that we're used to. I think maybe that Thiago Santos came back a little bit too soon than what he should have been, especially after the injuries he suffered. Um, but I do think with Glover Teixeira with Anthony Smith, like that's a better example. Um, and I think Glover Teixeira, he looked bad. He looked not bad, but he looked like his age was showing himself in the Anthony Smith fight. But then Anthony Smith kind of burnt himself out with the amount of punches that he was able to, the amount of strikes he was throwing and the pace he was going at. And one thing you say about Glover Teixeira, he's tough and he's durable, which is why I say I'm not sure if I can see a TKO win for John Blachowicz. Um, but I definitely you definitely do see like the skills and just the speed. I think plays a big issue. That power is still there, but I think the speed plays a big issue for Glover Teixeira. John Blachowicz, and Glover Teixeira, they're both flat-footed fighters. They're not known for their footwork. I think Glover Teixeira has more head movement than and has better defense than a John Blachowicz. But I think the speed is what hurts Glover Teixeira in this, and I think Glover Teixeira is going to find himself in positions where he maybe overextends himself and not able to retract, or he finds himself in positions where uh, John Blachowicz can counter a lot faster and get off strikes a lot faster. I think the leg kicks also is going to be an issue for Glover Teixeira in this fight. Um, the grappling, I wonder how Glover Teixeira is going to set those things up. I think John Blachowicz is going to be quick on them, quick on defending them, and be ready for it. I truly think I like if you look at this fight for me, I think Glover Teixeira has better boxing. I think Glover Teixeira has better defense. I think Glover Teixeira, obviously on the ground, I think is great. I think when it comes down to it, is just the timing for me. I think Glover Teixeira overall is a better fighter than John Blachowicz. Right? Overall, I think his skill set is a lot better than John Blachowicz. However, I think the timing of when this fight is happening and just where Glover Teixeira is at in his career, I don't think he's able to compete at the level that he could be or could have been. And I think that's the theme of Glover Teixeira, right? If Glover Teixeira came to America a lot quicker, if Glover Teixeira was able to come to the UFC a lot quicker than what he did, where would Glover Teixeira have been? Would he have been would he have been the light heavyweight champion already? Would he have beaten John Jones to the punch of being a champion? Um, would we remember Glover Teixeira for being a dominant light heavyweight in the UFC, and we will never know that. And I think Glover Teixeira has been making up for lost time, and he's done a great job of doing so. But I think his time has passed him. And I think Glover Teixeira is going to lose to John Blachowicz. I'm not going to say it's by knockout or TKO because I do give credit to Glover Teixeira and how tough he is, but I don't think Glover Teixeira gets it done. I think John Blachowicz beats him skill for skill. I think Glover Teixeira is better, but it's just not his time, and you can say it's past his time. But we'll see. Maybe he proves me. Maybe he proves me wrong. Maybe he shows Father Time is no match for Glover Teixeira, at least for right now. And he does the impossible and beats John Blachowicz and becomes the light heavyweight champion of the world. What a story that would be if Glover Teixeira was to go in there, beat John Blachowicz, who's on the tear, who beat Israel Adesanya, who beat Dominic Reyes, who beat Luke Rockhold, Jacare Souza. If he goes in there against a guy that everybody is banking on to win, and he defeats him just like he did with Anthony Smith, just like he did with Thiago Santos, what a win that would be. And I would say that would be the biggest upset, one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. For Glover Teixeira at his age to be able to do what he does, if he was to beat John Blachowicz, that's a big if for me. That would be one heck of a story. And at that point, Glover Teixeira can retire, can say, I'm like I think Glover Teixeira is at the point right now. If he loses this fight, he's going to retire. Um, but Glover Teixeira can win that fight, and say, I've done everything I could. I fought the best of the best. I beat who the best was at this time when John Blachowicz, and I've gone on a 6-fight win streak. I'm done. I've done all I can accomplish. Kind of like what GSP did. Um, Kind of like what Henry Cejudo seemed to be doing. And I would not be mad at that. That'd be a hell of a good career to end off on. But I don't see Glover Teixeira's dream coming true. I have John Blachowicz winning. I'm not going to say by knockout. I'm going to say by decision, just to be respectful of Glover Teixeira and just his ability to have great head movement, great defense, and just being tough and durable. But I have John Blachowicz beating Glover Teixeira. So I have Blachowicz winning it and retaining his title, and I have Corey Sandhagen beating Peter Yan to win the interim champ. Those are my two picks. And there's some other great fights in this comp. Islam Makhachev versus Dan Hooker. That should be an interesting one. I think the wrestling of Islam Makhachev is going to be a big factor. Has Dan Hooker adapted and is able to, and I know he's been working on it, has his work improved to the level that can compete with Islam Makhachev, not to work off the ground or anything like that. No, but to be able to defend enough to keep it up on the feet to give Islam Makhachev some problems. 'Cause I think if it stays on the feet, I have Dan Hooker winning. I don't know how Dan Hooker can keep it on the feet though, and I don't know for how long. So we'll see how much his grappling has improved. There's Volkan Ozdemir versus Magomed Ankalaev. That's a good fight. Um, Marcin Tybura versus Alexander Volkov. That's a good fight. The Leech versus Kazmat Chimaev is having on his card. That should be a very interesting fight to see where Kazmat Chimaev is after his whole COVID scare and what he's been through, especially at 170, right? He's going to be back at 170. His last fight, I believe, is at 185. So now we're going to see him at 170 fighting against a guy in the Leech who I think is a tough opponent. And I think we have to see how the ramifications of COVID, how that's going to affect Kazmat Chimaev. So there's a bunch of interesting fights on this card. I hope you guys all enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this video of me talking about the card. Please let me know in the comments whether you think I'm right, whether you think I'm full of shit. Uh, I would love to see you guys get your reactions of what you think is gonna happen. I'm going to legend. I said I have who I have winning, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, I won't be able to cover this card on that Sunday because I will be on vacation with family. But I will be back the following Sunday to cover UFC 268. You heard somebody's at the front right in my door. Um, but yeah, it's a little late right now too. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the card. Hopefully I'll get to hear you guys' responses in the comment sections. And yeah, I will be back on UFC 268 on that Sunday to cover the show. And I can't make no guarantees. I've been told Elijah may be free, so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But signing off for right now. My name is Tyriece Simon. This has been the MMA Renegade UFC 267 prediction show.